UN 영어뉴스. Why Germans love getting naked in public. Free body culture promotes harmony with nature, and today some Germans sunbathe, nude, strip down to play sports, and even hike in the bath. After 4 years of living in Berlin, I've learned to embrace Germany's anything goes spirit and more casual approach to nudity than where I grew up in the Midwestern US. While nudity in mainstream American culture is generally considered to be sexual, here in Germany, stripping down isn't uncommon in certain everyday situations. I've grown used to nude by default saunas, taken dips in pools, wear swimming suits, wore birthday suits, and surprised a massage therapist when I disrobed unprompted before a treatment, leading him to remark that Americans usually need to be asked to take off their clothes. In Berlin and many other German cities, it's not uncommon to stumble upon nude sunbathers in parks. But as the saying kinds of goes, you never forget your first time confronted by public nudity. My introduction came during a jog through Hasenheide, a park in Berlin's southern Neukölln district, when I came across a cluster of nude bodies, taking in the bright afternoon sun. Later, after speaking with friends and acquiring a fairly questionable Google search history, I found out that stumbling across an natural enclave in a city park or beach is practically a rite of passage in Berlin. What I'd seen wasn't part of Berlin's hedonistic side, however, but an example of Franco culture or free body culture, FKK, as it is usually shortened to, is associated closely with life in the German Democratic Republic, East Germany, or GDR. But nudism in Germany as a public practice stretches back to the late 19th century, and unlike, say, taking off your top at a beach in Spain, FKK encompasses a broader German movement with a distinct spirit, where stripping down to your essence in the natural world has historically been an act of both resistance and relief. Nudism has had a long tradition in Germany, said Arndt Bauer-Kamper, associate professor of modern history at Freie University in Berlin. At the turn of the 20th century, Lebensreform, life reform, was in the air, a philosophy that advocated for organic food, sexual liberation, alternative medicine, and simpler living, closer to nature. Nudism is part of this broader movement, which was directed against industrial modernity against the new society that emerged in the late 19th century. Bauer-Camper said, free body culture, or FKK, is practiced at many designated beaches, campgrounds, and parks across Germany. According to Hanno Hochmuth, a historian at the Leibniz Center for Contemporary History, Potsdam, and this reform movement took particular hold in larger cities, including Berlin, despite its romanticizing of country living. During the Weimar era, 1918 to 1933, FKK beaches, populated by a very small minority of sunbathing members of the bourgeois sprang up. According to Bauer-Camper, there was a sense of new freedom after the authoritarian society and the suffocating conservative values of Imperial Germany, 1871 to 1918. In 1926, Alfred Koch founded the Berlin School of Nudism to encourage mixed-gender nudist exercise, continuing the belief that outdoor nudity promoted harmony with nature and wellness benefits, and while Nazi ideology initially prohibited FKK, viewing it as a spring of immorality, by 1942 the Third Reich had softened its public nudity restrictions, though, of course, that tolerance wasn't extended to groups the Nazis persecuted, like Jews and communists. But it wasn't until the decades after Germany's post-war division into East and West that FKK really blossomed, particularly in the East, though embracing getting naked was no longer restricted to the bourgeois class. For Germans living in the communist GDR, where travel, personal liberties, and sales of consumer goods were curtailed, FKK functioned in part as a safety valve, according to Bauer-Camper, a way to let off tension in a deeply restrictive state by providing a bit of free movement. FKK culture blossomed in East Germany, where it served as an escape from the repressive communist government. Hochmuth, who visited nude beaches with his parents as a child growing up in East Berlin, agrees. There was some sense of escapism, he said. East Germans were always exposed to all these demands of the Communist Party and what they had to do, like going to party rallies or being asked to perform communal tasks on weekends without pay. While rogue East Germans continued bathing in the bath in the GDR's early years, while keeping an eye out for patrolling policemen, it wasn't until after Erich Honecker took power in 1971 that FKK would officially be allowed again. According to Bauer-Kemper, under Honecker, the GDR began a process of opening up foreign and domestic policies, a tactic meant to make itself look more favorable to the outside world. For the GDR, it was quite useful to argue that, okay, we are allowing and even encouraging nudism. We are kind of a free society, said Bauer-Kemper. In the 1970s and 80s, the strict East German government allowed residents to practice FKK as a way to appear more open to the world. Since East Germany merged with the larger West in 1990 and restrictions lifted in the former communist state, FKK culture has declined. In the 1970s and 80s, hundreds of thousands of nudists packed campgrounds, beaches, and parks. In 2019, the German Association for Free Body Culture counted only 30,000 plus registered members, many of whom were in their 50s and 60s. Yet today, FKK continues to leave an impression on German culture, particularly in the former East. It even manages to make the occasional viral headline, such as when a naked man in an FKK designated area at a Berlin lake this summer was forced to give chase to a wild boar that had run off with a bag containing his laptop. In fact, FKK and Germany's longer tradition of nudism has left a widespread tolerance across the country for clothing-free spaces and public nudity as a form of wellness. As I discovered, FKK spaces can still be found without looking too hard, and they are often tied to health pursuits. The listings site nechtbaden.de offers a well-organized list of beaches and parks throughout Germany where you can sunbathe nude, strip down at saunas and spas, or go for hikes in the buff in places like the Harz Mountains, Bavarian Alps, or the forests of Saxony-Anhalt, or if you want to be a bit more formal about it, the sporting club FSV Adolf Koch offers nude yoga, volleyball, badminton, and table tennis in Berlin. In many ways, the FKK legacy gives travelers an insight into values that still unite many East Germans. For Silva Stonkopf, who grew up going to FKK beaches in East Germany, the country's free-body culture has both reflected and imparted certain values that she is passing down to her children, particularly the country's open-mindedness towards their own bodies. Today, Germany's history of public nudity has fostered a broader open-mindedness towards body positivity. I think this is still very deeply rooted in my generation in East Germany, she said. I also try to give this on to my children, to raise them in this way of being open towards your own body and not being ashamed of being yourself and being naked, of showing yourself naked. Boston couple seeing nude bodies in a non-sexualized way also helps people learn to see others beyond their outer appearances. By bearing it all, it makes it easier to see not just a body, but the individual. If you are used to seeing people naked, you don't give much thought about appearances, she said. I think this is something that is more widespread in East Germany in general. We try to judge people not for their outer appearance, but we always try to look underneath